Hey everyone, I'm Aaron Potratz.
And I'm Nathan Hawkins.
We are the Shrink Think
Podcast,
Podcast.
baby.
Enjoy the show. Hey, Roy.
Oh, darg nabbit. I probably should have had some water. It doesn't matter. It's okay. Then I just have to go to pee-pee.
That's true. We don't want that.
Yeah, screw that. It's going to save so much time in my life not going to the bathroom again.
I mean, you have your Depends on, so you could just
Well, that depends.
just go right there. Here we go.
Do you have to wet yourself? Well, that depends. Why do they name it that? I think you can depend on it. You can depends on me.
Depend.
Get rid of the
That's
S.
what it is. I think it's just depend.
Yeah, that's what it should be.
Yeah. Like Fred Meyer.
You can depend on... Okay, keep going.
Hey everyone, welcome to the Shrink Think Podcast. We are, as always,
Excited
to be here with you. We're excited that you're with us, actually, because we are where the party is happening. Well, if you're listening to this podcast, probably because you have an interest in therapy, right? You have an interest in personal growth or self-help, something like that. Maybe you're a therapist yourself, or maybe you're a client that's going to therapy, or maybe your partner is going to therapy, or maybe everybody in your family is going.
Except you.
Yeah, in which case maybe you should go. But if that's happening, we hope that if you're going to therapy, somebody's going to therapy, that they're getting better. Like things are changing, things are improving in some way, because that's the point of going somewhere. Just like if you are going to the gym or you're eating, certain kinds of food, but you're not losing weight, you're not getting, fit, you're not whatever.
Stop talking about me.
Right. Like something's not happening here. Like it's not, and it's not to say that what you're doing isn't valuable. It just might not be giving you the kind of results that you are needing in order to, get healthier and grow and be the person that you need to be. And that doesn't even have to be like achieving your absolute highest potential. It could just be improving in such a way so that, you go from having conflict and arguments and, shouting matches to, well, we're just arguing, but, and we agree to disagree and we haven't fully resolved it, but at least it's a whole lot more respectful. Like, even if that's the case, you're minimizing the damage. So the goal, though, with therapy is you should be improving in some way. And I want to talk a little bit about why it might be that you're not improving. And I think there's a couple of things that can be going on. Obviously, if you're going to therapy, there are two people that are involved, you and the therapist. And we're just talking about individual therapy here right now. And so we want to look at both sides of that. On the client side, if you're a person going to therapy, there might be some reasons why you're not getting better that are related to your therapist. Maybe your therapist isn't challenging you in the ways that you need. Maybe you're not asking for that. Maybe you're shutting them down. Maybe you're not giving them enough information about yourself, or you're not being honest about things that are actually happening, or the things that you're actually doing that would actually be helpful to change. So maybe it's with you, client, that you're not sharing something, or maybe it's that you're getting certain kinds of feedback, but you're kind of resisting. You don't want to believe certain things about yourself, or you don't actually want to change because it's too hard or too scary. So those might be some of the reasons, and we'll kind of unpack that a little bit on your side. And then on the other side, there might be a therapist out there that is maybe not sharing the kinds of things that they need to be sharing. Maybe they've got certain habits that they're just kind of staying in a certain zone, or they're not challenging you, or maybe they don't understand what's really going on, and they're just sort of allowing things to continue without being maybe direct or honest about you might be better suited with somebody else who's got more experience with this issue, or I think we've run our course here. We've worked together this long, and now, it's time for you to find somebody different who can help you, or whatever. There might be stuff going on with the therapist on their side that's not contributing to your growth and your success. So we want to kind of unpack that a bit to see, so to help you, I guess, as a listener, whether you're a client or a therapist, what's going on and what needs to change so that actual progress can be made.
So, on the client side, you're always wrong. It's never the therapist's fault. You're probably screwing up. Just kidding. Eric's looking at me like, this took a weird turn.
Have a great day.
Right.
Wow.
No. So, like, one of the things that happens, I think that the not one of the things, but the theme of what Aaron was just saying is kind of this idea of just not sharing. There's a variety of reasons for not sharing, but that's kind of what's happening, and some of it's because you might not know. You actually don't know, and you're not, and the therapist doesn't ask. Or
Meaning you don't know what you're supposed to be sharing, or you don't know that there is more that you need to be sharing because you just don't know.
And some of you, I think, because I think this is going on more than I realized, actually, is you kind of are making up a story about what's supposed to happen in the therapy process. And I want to go into this a little bit because on the dramatic extreme of this, I worked with a person, it was actually a long time ago, and I found out, probably, this is so crazy. I found out like probably more than a year in, that they would come to therapy every time thinking, okay, like they were in a fight with me. They were in some weird mental judo thing where they had me on the side of like I have secret knowledge and I'm going to be figuring them out, and them on the side of like, no, I'm not going to tell him that stuff. He has to figure it out on his own. And so then what would happen is, and we laughed a lot about this like later, is I don't even know what I would say, and then they would think like, crap, he's so good, he's figuring it out. And I'm like, I don't even know. This is an entire story in this person's head.
I don't even know what I'm figuring
like,
out.
I didn't even know I was doing that, right? And they were like, oh, you don't even realize how good you were. And I'm like, what? Like, and at the fight that I wasn't having, like and so weird. And so then what happened was they come in and they're like, I'm not going to tell you this, but I've been abused my whole life. Like, you just said you're not going to tell me, and then you told me, right? Because they were carrying this thing, and they didn't want to talk about it, and it literally fell off. And then later we kind of were laughing about, like, why did you wait a year? Like, I mean, because the relationship seemed fine, and we were talking about other things, but those other things probably on the outside did look like an improvement of sorts to people on the outside. But all that person really cared about was the thing that they were carrying around the whole time. So in their mind, it wasn't actually getting any better, but they also were not going to tell me anyway.
Right.
So they knew enough to know that and this is kind of a weird thing, I feel like this has several layers to it, and there's different people that might do different aspects of this, but probably not the whole thing. Because what therapy did provide for this person is cover. Because their family knew there was an issue. So since they were going to therapy, the family backed off, right? That person, they're not getting the heat
You're
from the
going to
family.
therapy, so
Yep, it's fine. And they know the family's probably noticing some minor behavior changes, but all that did is create the space for this person to just hold on to it for a long time. So I pointed out because it's like, it's therapy can be very weird. But you have to be at least you have to entertain what is the story that I'm telling myself is actually supposed to be happening here? And how am I colluding with it?
Yeah, on the other side of that, I think you said the story that I'm telling myself or that I'm telling the therapist. The most helpful stuff for us as therapists, I think, is when a client comes in saying, this is what is actually happening. Mm-hmm. Not trying to engage in a story, create a story, exactly, or convey something, but it's just simply, this is what happened. So I'll have some people come in and they will be more open and they'll start talking about this and that and this happened or whatever, and they'll say like, oh, and I don't really want to share this, but this is therapy, right? Like, how helpful can this be if I'm not telling you what actually happened or what I'm actually thinking or what I actually said? So here goes, I'm going to tell you the thing. So this is different from that first scenario because it's somebody who maybe was not sharing because they didn't know that they were carrying this story. But in this case, it's somebody who knows that they're withholding something and they're like, I probably need to share it. because this is a key piece of the puzzle that you need to know. I think, or I feel, or I do, or a pattern that I repeat. Here it is, right? So when people actually share that, we get a clearer picture of what's going on so we can deal with the real issues. And so sometimes if you're not sharing that stuff as a client, if you're not being honest about what's actually happening, and this has happened too, where people will come in a different scenario a year or two in, and they'll explain something like, oh, this happened, or they'll tell the story, oh yeah, when I was dating this person, I did this and I did that, and I'm thinking, you didn't say that. That's not how you framed it. Like,
right.
You skipped over that back.
I had no idea.
That changes a lot of things. Like, oh, this was an abusive relationship. You didn't say that. You just said we got into an argument, or whatever.
You forgot about the beating part.
Right. Or the like yelling and the, whatever. It's like, okay, that changes a lot. So when you can describe what is actually happening, and when I say describe, to be clear, it's helpful when you as a client can come in and not give it judgments, not say things like, don't say things like, we were just mean to each other. I'm like, what is that? I don't know what that means. We were mean to each other. Like, what was the behavior? Describe what happened. So part of it might be you need to train your brain, and maybe even ask your therapist for help to train your brain to actually communicate in descriptive ways about what happened. So this happened and I was thinking this, or this person, we were mean in that we were calling each other names, or we were interrupting each other, or that person said, well, you can go to hell. And I was like, well, you can go there first. Like, okay, there you go. That's helpful. Now I can have a better, clearer understanding of what is actually happening so we can deal with it.
Right. So I can't remember, maybe you remember, Aaron, the name of the book, but I think it's Nonviolent Communication.
Yes.
And it's the idea of objectifying communication, essentially. So if you asked your therapist, you said, I really don't know how to make this objective, like, because I'm going to say things like we were yelling and stuff, and I realize that can be, everybody has a different perspective on what that is. Your therapist could help you talk through that. Like, well, let's talk about volume. What does the volume mean? Because that can be helpful when you get it down to like actually specifics, and even can take the heat out of it too, for you when you do that. So completely and totally. On the other piece of the pie on the client side, I think, is where it's not like what to do and what not to do. It's like the idea of what are you aware of that you're actually doing, and can you actually speak about it, or just be honest with it? Like,
be open to it, really.
Yeah. So, I mean, sometimes what's happening on the therapist side is the therapist may feel, and I'm kind of bleeding over to the therapist on this at this point, but may feel like I don't know what's going on. This person seems like they're in the same spot. I've even commented, and they're like, "No, it's fine, it's good." I don't know how it could be good because we're doing the same. Like, okay? Well, maybe something else is going on that either you're not talking about or that we'll figure out over time. And as a side note, I would say, generally, what I'll tell younger clinicians is because, and there's a little bit of reason behind this, because younger clinicians will feel like they're supposed to be getting a result quick. And so, and why does this person keep coming in and blah, blah, blah. And I'll tell them, like, look, if they're still coming in, they have a reason for that, or else they would just leave. And then you probably find out something completely obtuse obtuse to what you think, all of a sudden, kind of like that other story I was telling about earlier. But that is not always the case. It could be that maybe you as the client are not really, maybe you don't trust the therapist. Maybe you feel like you've got some rapport, but not enough. Where you're worried about getting judged. You're worried about like, well, we've got a good relationship. I'm trying to protect it.
Which means you might have some trust issues from the past that you're bringing into the therapy room that are getting worked out, and that just may take some time, that's understandable. Mm-hmm. Or maybe also, and kind of in addition to this, sometimes you as a client don't want to see yourself in a particular light that a therapist is trying to get you to see yourself in. It's like you don't want to see or believe, oh no, it is all my fault, it is my problem, right? Because it connects with like, oh, my dad would always say, you're such a whatever, or everything is your fault, or whatever. My ex, we used to say this, or whatever. And so maybe you're afraid of seeing yourself a particular way, and so you've got some resistance to what the therapist is saying or doing that might, again, need to get worked out to where you can be open to the idea of what they're saying. Because chances are the therapist is not saying everything is your fault, you're bad. They're just trying to say, hey, you've got a blind spot here that we need to look at, and that is your responsibility.
You know, one of the things you could say to the therapist, which I've never had this happen, it would actually be next level, is if a client said something like, I don't believe that you would judge me, but I don't know how to tell you this thing without thinking that you're going to.
Or feeling like I'm being judged.
Yeah. So can you help me do it? I'm kind of nervous to talk about this entire subject because I won't be able to see myself, I don't think, if I'm honest, another way besides entirely everything's my fault, whatever it happens to be. That would, honestly, I feel like that would take a lot of insight. But maybe as you're listening to this, courage, a lot of courage. Maybe as you're listening to this, it's like spurring something up in your mind of like, maybe that's, what I should just share. Because the therapist more than likely is not. I mean, they're not judging you that way. They just don't. Anyway, we just kind of don't do that as people. Or as therapists, actually, we do that as people. It sounds funny. But
not helpful. People are like, yeah, that just lowered my trust level.
Yeah, well, I mean, anyway. When you get in the room with somebody, as a therapist, when you get in the room with them, it's like all that caring, you were in that moment, all that caring and everything that's going on for that person is very authentic and real, regardless of how flippant that you might inside your mind be about those issues in the general public. It's like you're dealing with an actual human being here, know. So just to be clear about that.
So on the other side, therapists, we just as we're rounding for home here, the therapist. If you are a therapist, you need to make sure that you are challenging the person appropriately, right? That you are giving feedback and you're saying things to them about what you're observing and kind of because the point of therapists being in the room with somebody is to be a mirror, healthy, objective mirror to the person so that they can see and know and understand themselves and their behaviors and their belief systems, thought processes better, so that they can take some control over that and change it, right? And so it might be like there's an example of like one lady that I have worked with for many years. When we would talk about things, she would kind of get defensive. And of course, I'm changing all of this so nobody has any idea who this person is, right? She would get defensive, and then I would comment on that, and I would say, like, it seems like every time I try to, bring this up or challenge, you get defensive in these ways. And she would say, "Oh, I'm not defensive."
Irony.
Right? And then she's like, "Oh, well, I'm not trying to be." I'm like, "Okay,
just comes
like that's helpful." Yeah, like, but can you see that it is happening? I'm like, well, yeah, but I don't really know why. And so we can kind of talk about it. And it took several sessions where that same thing would happen, and I pointed out, and then she would kind of increase in awareness and then decrease in the defensiveness and increase in openness, right? Where she didn't realize that she wasn't really open to what I was saying because she just was so used to saying and doing the same things over and over, which was keeping her stuck. And so the awareness that I was giving her and challenging her was causing her to have to open up, and she was being receptive to it. So that's a therapist's job, is to try to reflect things back and to challenge in different ways for people to think and see themselves differently and then behave differently. So if you're a therapist, that's part of your job. You can't just ask people, how are you feeling, or how did that feel, or oh, I'm so sorry, I can understand how it'd be so bad. Like, just validate without any change. So that's one piece of it.
Well, the thing that, just to put in there though, the thing that is the assumption in what you're saying, that entire example you gave, is that client trusted you to actually care. They were feeling the risk of that trust, I think, when the confrontation happened, but they found out that, like, oh no, you still care. And as they found out that their first hunch was right in the beginning, which was that they could trust you, over the course of time, they learned, like, that they could still be open, which gave that person the change inside their life to where they're like, it's possible to be open in this way. I know what some of the formula is in order for that to happen, right? So that I would imagine it would have affected their life outside of therapy. In other words, it's not just you; it's that they found out like how to do it.
Yeah, and the thing that really that what we're talking about here is that in order to make progress in therapy, you're going to have to put yourself in situations with the therapist that are uncomfortable for you. You're going to have to see yourself in ways that you're not used to. You're going to have to do things that you're not used to doing, because that's what change is all about. You're not used to doing things that way. So in this instance, yeah, this lady was experiencing something with me that she had not experienced before. Safety and openness and like trust and togetherness in a space that previously had been shut down or had been unsafe for her. So the therapy process was opening up a door to something that she had not ever experienced. And so then we had to kind of work out, well, what do I do in this space and how do I do that? That's the kind of growth that I think the process needs to happen, to hold in order for people to actually make progress.
I think as we're closing up here, what we're landing on is trust is probably the issue in general. So, and that means like one of the things that they say throughout grad school, everyone trust the process, trust the process. Well, yeah, you have to be in the process though, like to go into it intentionally, and then trust that that's what you're supposed to be doing. And it could be that like the rapport facilitates trust to happen, but there's action that occurs that's helpful as moving people along when you are using the trust, while you're trusting the trust. So all that to say, therapists on that side, maybe highlight it. Just be very direct about it. Like, I don't know if we trust each other here. Like, I think we're pretty good humans and we get along pretty well, but I don't know if I trust that you are going to take anything I'm saying and do anything with it. And client, I don't know that you are trusting me to actually help you, in that scenario. So, all that to say, we landed well. Have a great day.
I had to be like, let's lean in a bit. Nope. I wasn't going to say anything. I was like, I know you think I'm going to.
Yeah, just stop.
Now I am in your
Look,
brain.
I knew you were going to do it.
You were under my control, my little puppet.
It's very sucky.
For you. Good for me, bad for you.
Well,